Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate the opportunity and you connecting me with these magical humans. And Jen, I think what I am mainly concerned about is higher education not keeping up pace with what's happening in the industry, because dinosaurs are teaching these classes. They haven't actively all been involved in industry, or they're not all actively in production right now. So the whole idea is to have a conversation between industry, faculty, and students, right? And I really think faculty is the missing key. It's the missing conversation, because so many faculty will be invited to this event. And it's not just faculty, it's program leaders, department chairs, deans. These are folks who control job descriptions, hiring, so that higher education can actually be a reflection of what the industry needs and where it's going. Do we really need to hire somebody with, who's written 17 books on the theory of silent film? Like, do we really need that? No,
Right.
We probably need somebody who can be nimble and adapt current practices in the industry and translate those into the classroom. Why? So that our students can have skills that are relevant to the workforce today. So in terms of production, I think it would just be really helpful to faculty like myself, who will be putting together new forms of our classes over the summer. We're going to take the information that we acquire at these conferences and redesign our curriculum. So we know that, for example, at most Cal State schools, which, by the way, I run the Cal State Entertainment Alliance, and so we help 23 campuses in our system more meaningfully connect with the entertainment industry, so we can have these types of conversations, so we can teach relevant shit, not stuff that doesn't matter.
Right.
to be honest,
No, that makes sense. And it's definitely something we've heard over time. Like, it's not, I used to work in education at Autodesk, and we had the same problems,
there you go,
the same struggle. And the farther out you go, if you have the really specialized schools that hire from production, the farther out you go in terms of how close you are to that epicenter, all the way up to high schools, the bigger the disconnect can be. And there's a whole bunch of reasons around that, including access to technology, access to hardware. That's probably one of the biggest challenges, I think, from my perspective, that schools face, is being able to keep up with the latest developments in hardware and software, which is really challenging.
It's a huge obstacle. You're absolutely correct. And so what I'm really interested in is, okay, as we're thinking about this hybrid model now of going back to campus, I've been fully vaccinated. Most faculty members in production are probably going to be fully vaccinated. So we'll be probably going back to campus, which, thank God, because we've all been trying to teach from our living rooms when we have no cameras and we have no studios. And it's been a nightmare for everybody, of course, but in the context of higher ed, right? So I think the real takeaway is, how do we continually disrupt our education models, our curriculum, and our classes? What can we learn from the industry this summer that we can take into our classes in the fall and make it work? I'll give you a very niche example. I teach broadcast news. That's my bread and butter. It's my professional background.
That's what I studied.
Did you really? Where?
I studied journalism at Concordia University in Montreal.
Yes, Concordia has an awesome program.
I mean, I'm so old. When
lucky
we did
girl.
We were cutting radio tape.
Oh, girl, you couldn't grow your nails. You had to use the razor. I know.
We weren't even allowed to use the editorial software. It had to be an editor because it was so fancy, and we didn't know how to use it.
So I oversaw the digital transition at the BBC World Service Radio from tape to digital audio editing. And out of maybe 6 producers, 4 of them quit because they were 80 years old and they should have gone anyway. But they were just we can't do this computer stuff. This is we're leaving. But anyway, so in news, Now, keep in mind, it's spring, and I have no cameras to check out because we haven't figured out a bloody sanitizing protocol for our equipment. And two, we're locked out of our studios. So how do we produce a newscast? So as a professor, I'm like, yes, but the show must go on, and it will. And so I quickly had to learn a virtual switcher platform. TVU Network was the name of the software. Learned it over spring break, and I was like, we're going to do a live newscast, and you're going to put your phones on a tripod, and then we're going to have a director, and we're just going to switch between your phones, and we're going to do it live. And we got it done. And I just got a text from a student who had used that material in his portfolio reel and got a job in Odessa, Texas. So I'm like,
it works.
I transferred skills in a pandemic. I did my job. Like my job is done when my students get jobs. That is the desired outcome. It's the desired takeaway of anything that comes out of my mouth, right? So in terms of this panel, what do faculty need to know as they are retooling their curriculum, right, for a hybrid situation where not all students are going to be back on campus, right? So this is going to be a really interesting scenario. And it's likely what's happening in the industry as well, right? You have the post-production that's going to still probably work from home. We're going to be shifting all of our practices, right? And so let's have that conversation and see what that might look like in a higher ed context. Does that help?
That totally helps. The title makes me nervous because I think that's too specific. Like virtual production is just one thing. So what I do is I popped in something else. That it's a panel that we did.
Oh, I love it.
Now you could tweak it a bit more because it doesn't necessarily have to be global, but that was a panel that our CEO chaired earlier this year for a conference.
Really good one.
And it was a little bit of everything, right? It was cloud, it was virtual production, it was techniques, it was, you know, I think there's so much in terms of what, like everyone, I mean, we all need to learn. No one knows what a post-pandemic world's going to look like, right? None of us know once we're out of this, whatever that looks like, how do we interact? How do we interact with people? How do we interact with our customers? How do we learn? Are we all going to be like throwing away our headsets because nobody ever wants to look at a Zoom logo again? Or has this become part of our daily life? What do you do with kids that can't go to campus, who are going to have to work from home or study from home because of still being at risk? You know, the pandemic's not going to magically end, I don't think, when we all get a shot. As far as I understand, I don't know. What do I know? I can't even say what they do, and can't even say the special disease medical term for it. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of stuff. I mean, for Foundry, like I am not a technology wizard, so I'm a little bit apprehensive. I told this to Kevin. It's open source. Yep, that's another one. We're freezing. If you guys can hear me. Okay, I see you moving again.
I can still hear you. We just lost your video.
Moving. Okay,
yeah,
I just turned off my video because it seemed like it was chugging. Either Kevin's super still or he's frozen. I can't tell. Oh no, he's not. He's moving. Okay, he's not frozen. Yeah, so I think I just want to be cautious because I'm not going to be able to go in there and say this is exactly what's happening in production because I'm not an expert. I can get the talking points about how we're seeing our tools have to adapt to a new reality. We need to look at our tools and make them more cloud accessible. Our licensing has to be more accessible than the old style. What did we do to adapt? Just offering licenses to schools. We used to sell licenses to schools who installed them in their labs. Well, that's not a model that's working. So we had to adapt even our licensing model as we're working towards a cloud. I'm going to write my own notes down so I know I have to talk about. So it's everything from cloud-based licensing, file sharing becomes really important, being able to navigate file sharing in the cloud. The virtual production is a component of filmmaking in terms of how do you reduce the amount of people on set? How do you reduce travel and location-based filming? Because that's very hard to do these days. And that's where the virtual production techniques come in, but it's only one part of what does a post-pandemic world look like in filmmaking.